Are you listening to me here?
Hey, firm.
Have trouble cutting off the video, make cope better with a poor signal or with an overloaded data bus. What do you?
There we go.
Phone?
Hi there, Robert. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, gentlemen?
Fit and serviceable.
You have to forgive me. Forgive me. I was in the middle of a nap and I almost damn near forgot about this thing completely. So
You got your priorities right. Nap is very important.
right, yeah, it's the first 2 days I've had that I've been able to sleep during the day. Just take a well needed rest.
Yeah, I did the same today. We did our normal 7K, and I hit the sack for 45 minutes this afternoon to prepare myself for tonight.
There you go. Well, how have you gentlemen been?
Good. I just said we're up here in Montreal. Well, of course, we just had Guy Lafleur's funeral over the past few days, and I must say it was a well done event.
Good.
My next door neighbor knew him personally, and he lived about 7K from where we are. I never met him, but everybody that I've spoken to said, "What a gentleman!"
Spoke highly. Wonderful.
And I suppose you can't get a higher compliment than that. The other thing, God forgive me for saying this, but when the Archbishop spoke in French, I understood every single word. But that's French. That's not Quebecois. That's a little bit different.
A little different, hey?
Yeah.
Well,
sure is.
I'm sure that there's a lot of people that are thrilled to hear that you guys thought it was a wonderful ceremony. It says a lot about what went down.
Yeah.
Oh, good. How's everybody else?
Well, Rob's the one with the big adventure story.
Yeah.
What's up? How are you guys? Oh, sorry, it's just hard to hear everybody. So you want to hear? I mean, you looking to hear about what kind of went on?
Yeah, that's why you're here.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. It's a bit of it didn't go the way I thought it'd go. My trip over there, as soon as I arrived in Poland, I got to figure out how screwed up the Legion was in itself, the organization. Basically, you figured out that there wasn't really an organization. Mind you, the war at the time was only 27 days, something like that old. But the further you got into country, so from Poland and Seshu and then into Lviv, and then a couple days in Lviv, you start to meet more people, hear more stories. You hear a lot of different stories, but when you start hearing the same things over and over again, those little points kind of add up, and you can make a better, more informed decision, right? So my adventure led me to so actually the day I arrived in Landcut was, no, I'm sorry, in Lviv, was the day that Lviv got rocketed. The fuel depot was less than a kilometer from where our car was, and yeah, then we got a phone call to turn around and head straight to the scene. But there was nothing we could do there. We didn't have any medical kits, nothing like that. There was nobody in. There was like 5 injuries, and those were all minor injuries. It was just one hell of a fire.
Was it a missile or artillery?
Cruise missile that had hit Lviv. Just a few days prior, they had hit the airport, tried to take out the runway. And then after that, then it became your standard, the same round of artillery. Well, at that time, they were taking minor artillery on the outsides of Lviv because they could get it in close enough from Belarus, their long distance stuff. But mostly, the only thing that could touch them out there were cruise missiles, basically. They're just too far out. And even with sending it from the east or the south, there's so much land it's got to cover that with the anti-aircraft weapons, that it's a fairly high chance it'll get taken out. So Belarus is about the tactically smart, best place to fire them from. Now, or so then I stayed away from the fighting. There were guys going everywhere. You had guys trying to get themselves into territorial defense. You had guys trying to get them down to the Georgian Legion. You had guys trying to find their way to a thing called the Norman Legion. Guys trying to get them insert themselves down in the fight directly in the South. There was just U.S. servicemen, veterans going every which way, and there was no real, there was no ability to track where those guys are going. Because the Legion in itself didn't really exist. There's a small part on the right side of politics, not the right, I shouldn't say it that way. It's not the right way to say it. On one side of politics and that were tied in with the military that were putting out websites, drawing people in. Then there was another side that was purely politics, was what the government put to the embassies. And the embassies couldn't keep up with all of it. So ultimately, you had a whole rush of men like me who decided to head to Ukraine because they thought they could do something good. Well, it turned out that, yeah, they are doing good things. It's turned out to be quite the chaotic incidents on the ground. Guys are getting sent in there to so-called training areas. Guys, for instance, let's just say mechanics, aeronautical mechanics, guys like of those traits. They're not frontline fighters, but what they are is a huge amount of skill that can be placed somewhere necessary and used. The problem is the integration of those types of skills into a military or a more of the territorial defense. So more of a militia setting that doesn't have that structure. So these guys are sitting there doing nothing instead of, and not even be given a weapon and sent to the front lines. If they are getting sent anywhere, it's usually to B lines. Now, your guys that come through that are tabbed, that are, special forces in really any sort of way, those guys are getting selected independently and pushed out to the front lines because in a lot of cases, those guys already had the language skills. They have the ability to integrate into other organizations because that's how they're trained to embed themselves in a lot of cases. So they're the perfect person to have out there.
At least one major obstacle that you didn't have was to win hearts and minds.
No, that's true. That's true. Putin did that for us. It was when he attacked like that, trying to brutalize just so many innocent women and children across the board. It's so indiscriminate. There's no. That's the worst part about it. I mean, he's not fighting a war just in a sense of soldier to soldier, tactically, advanced setting to advanced setting. He's just firing missile. His orders are to kill everybody. It doesn't matter. You go through some of these cities, Mike, for instance, where I ended up in Lviv, and right in at just immediately after the Bucha, what they call now the Battle of Bucha. It's Irpin, Bucha, and a bunch of other little cities just directly north, 3 or 4 kilometers of Kyiv. And it was one hell of a battle, but you go through there and you see, 30-story residential complexes, apartment buildings that have howitzer rounds and armor rounds direct punched right into the side of it. And I mean, okay, maybe there was a guy who broke out a window firing a rifle from down from there. But when there's 15 of those rounds into one building, this isn't Vietnam. This isn't World War II. That shit, our technology is much more precise than that. We have the ability to pinpoint. Fuck. Oh, I hope I didn't. And kill our targets directly. Indiscriminate bombing, missiles going everywhere. This shit, it's unacceptable. And
I think some of that was not indiscriminate. I saw a video pretty early on, first few weeks, taken by somebody inside a building that had already been shot up a bit. But there was a tank out in line of sight. You see the turret train over, point at his window and fire. They were using thermal to decide anybody that's moving in there could have an RPG and just wait.
Oh yeah. Yeah, their doctrine is to, you know, they see movement. You just take it, don't level everything so they don't get the chance. And that's apparent because they've leveled everything.
From those buildings before or not, or it's just preemptive, shoot anything that moves.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting what's going on there. I mean, you know, so I ended, make a long story short, just trying to find a place to plug in here and keep my reception. I ended up meeting a group of men, a gentleman, an American, a Canadian, an Englishman, and what else? Who else I should say? And a couple of Ukrainians. She's most important part of the bunch. They had been moving around humanitarian aid in large quantities directly up to the affected areas, the immediate areas. And the way they were able to do this was because they were embedded with the government in the sense that the person they were partnering with was the youngest MP in Ukrainian parliament, Slavitoslav Yurash, 26 years old, politician, you know, started out and not in politics. I think he was in press when he started out, but I believe I have power now. They were doing really good things. And then I got to sit down and talk with them, was driving for them for a little bit, trying to, you know, I was sort of got involved in running the convoy missions for them. And then from there, I got to know Urash pretty good. And then we decided to make this group an official NGO. So we created a Ukrainian NGO, Wild Geese International Medical Rescue Squad. It's a long name for it. In any case, the website is www.wildgeeserescue.
I put that on our Facebook page or website.
Oh, okay. Yeah. wildgeesemedicalrescue.org is the website. It's rudimentary. It's not the best. It'll come with time. But I, you know, as being directly in the fight, nope, I stayed away from the bombs and the bullets the best I could. The crazy part about it is my intention was to stay away from it, but I still ended up right literally on the backside of 3 kilometers off the Russian line. Urash and I were in the back of a pickup truck. Turns out there was a Russian drone that was flying the supply line that we were driving on, and the UA found it, and they shot it right out of the sky. I had no idea because we were pointed the opposite direction, Urash and I, while the drivers saw the missile hit the brakes, and then all of a sudden the flash. I looked back over my head, and all you could see was magnesium burning coming down. Just a perfect example of something up there going boom.
Robert, you said you were working the convoys.
Mm-hmm.
Were you working munitions convoys, or were you working humanitarian aid convoys?
Humanitarian aid convoys. So trying to assemble all these guys, keep them in, you know, trying to install the best guidance for a whole bunch of people that have no idea how to do this and pull them together. It was quite the task. Our smaller groups, when it was just Urash, you know, Charlie, myself, Yuri, Urash, just the base team, we would move around, you know, 3 or 4 vehicles at a time. So anywhere we were in there was usually I was driving the lead vehicle, just trying to get us through where we needed to go. And they did a really good job of, they like to drive fast, and they like to drive like that's going to be the last time they ever drive a car. So it worked very well for them.
What's your best guess as to how much material actually gets through?
On the U.S. aid side, or on the military aid side, or on the
Mostly on the
humanitarian?
military side, if you could give it a percentage.
Well, from the intel I've gathered, directly from people that are in the field, there's a very large percentage of equipment that has made its way to the eastern lines. The southern lines I can't speak too much about. It's a bit harder to get stuff down there, just because the Black Sea, right there, the ability to reach in and touch inland very easily and very quickly exists. But
fortunately, Odessa is still open. For how long?
Yeah,
I don't know.
thank God, right?
Yeah.
But on the east, yes, there's definitely military weaponry that's made. The Javelin has been an incredible tool.
And Lockheed has just announced a doubling of production.
Yeah. Between the Javelin and the in-law, what they're doing to the enemy armor is ridiculous. But a lot of that goes back to the training that NATO and U.S. forces, Canadian forces applied after 2014. The training that the UA got during those times and leading up, a lot of that training and what the military has done. Now, though they don't say this politically or out front right now, it's too, but all of that time that they invested in training those soldiers paid off. It taught them how to operate like an army. It's exactly what we tried to do in Afghanistan, yet Afghanistan, the fucking military gave up and put their arms up and said, fuck, I want to fight for my country. So what's happening there is exactly what should have happened in Afghanistan.
But that was the difference between, you're not involved in nation building in the Ukraine.
Right.
In Afghanistan, that really was a nation building exercise.
Right. That they failed miserably at. So in any case, I was able to run lots of interesting missions, went lots of interesting places, seen lots of things that were critical to the success of the Ukrainian military's mission and the Ukrainian government's mission. And we support them 100%. I mean, and in fact, again, I'm one of eight founding members of a Ukrainian charity that is founded by one of the youngest members of parliament, Svitasov. And so part of their goal, not on top of getting aid where it needs to be, there's a lot of aid coming into the country on the humanitarian side that's not getting to where it needs to be. It's getting stored. Right. It's getting funneled off, things like that. Not to say that it's corruption or anything like that, but we all know what that country was built on, partially.
It's being interdicted.
Right. So part of Urash's goal and dream is to guide them out of that and try to get them away from that style of corruption and things like that. Get more openness within the government and by building a charity that's going to be open publicly in the sense of here's what we're doing. Come check us out. We want to be vetted. That we want the State Department approvals. We think that we can, in the reconstruction side of things, beyond the military, or beyond the medical side of while the war is going, and we think that there's avenues for us to expand into the reconstruction side and make sure we help funnel and get these projects built to a standard that's not what's the word I'm looking for? That isn't twisted, right? Again, eliminate the corruption, bring in open eyes over the money and let them follow the money and they see where it goes. You end up with an honest product. You end up with, people actually a country that wants your help in rebuilding and is proud to have you there versus someone that doesn't want anything that you're offering.
What's your sense of how do the people feel about their leadership?
Oh, well, their leadership, they're 100. The people of Ukraine are 100% behind the people, or behind the leadership of their government right now. Zelensky in itself, no matter where he came from, who he was before, what he did, what he's done for his country is amazing, and the the way that the leadership has stayed in the public eye, the direct leadership, not his wife, not people like that, but the president, and his board and his guys, they're out walking the streets, and they're not afraid of Putin. They take their safety very seriously, but they're not afraid, and that portrays right into the people of the country. The independent governments that I've met along the way, one of the things they lack right now is, so the military has taken on a NATO approach where everything is guided and bonded together. The government on the federal side is trying to do that, like a Western government, where they've got that connection to all parts of the country, and this is all happening prior to the war, and at the same time, the local governments are trying to build themselves in a new era, get away from the Soviet doctrine that everyone came from in a lot of those places, especially in the eastern side of the country. But with the war, it really opened the eyes to the people that were in support of the Russians and the eastern side, because the propaganda is telling them, well, it's Ukrainians bombing Ukrainians and things like that. But when there's bombs going off on Russian supporting population, not Ukraine, not just Ukrainian who claims they're Ukrainian, but Russian Ukrainians, they start to question the validity of what Putin's doing, and they started to figure it out as more and more of them died. So now you're seeing a flip on the population in the Donetsk regions, at least. People are starting to realize what an evil man their fearless leader was, And
the questions are also being asked in Moscow. The CNN just had it on a little bit earlier tonight. People questioning now why all the body bags are coming back to Moscow.
Right. And Putin's going to he's going to push his whatever agenda he wants to call it. They're all racist and Nazis in a lot of cases, and that's what he's trying to stop. The funny part is the they're not the ones that are leaving the messages on kids' schools and hospitals and shit like that, and neo-Nazi right side crazy shit. It's sick what's happening. Iraq that was a different place. That was one type of warfare. And I'm sure I wasn't in Fallujah or anything like that. It was pretty crazy in there. And the urban warfare was fast, dramatic, and loud. But on the side of the conventional warfare that's happening now in Ukraine, with the artillery and the cruise missiles and the bombs being dropped, the devastation is unbelievable, and the innocent people that are there are just getting brutally murdered. If they're trying, for instance, I was at a school. In fact, I went in there to see if we could find a cat that was in the house for someone. And we got up to the house, and he got out of the car, and he says, "Holy shit, that's my buddy's house." And there was nothing left of it. Now we're in the road, and to the left of me is this 4-story school, and the entire thing is burnt out. Right. So I'm back in the house looking, check for, UXO and things like that before we start walking through there. But there's 4 craters in there from, they were fairly decent sized artillery rounds, all within 15 meters of each other, all on the, basically right on top of the house. Mm. So I thought, fuck, that's definitely a targeted. There was something more in this house than what was going on. Well, the problem was there was an armored APC that was run, according to the story that was told by one of the neighbors. There was an armored APC driving down the road, and they fired off the artillery. And in the meantime, they hit everything but the armored APC. They leveled the house on one side of the street, and they hit the school multiple times on the other side of the street. So supposedly there were people held up in there, refugees at the time. There was, I don't know how many dead in that one, but yeah, it's a mess over there. When we were in Kharkiv, it's kind of wild to be sitting there standing on top of a hotel and looking around you and within a kilometer, for me, it was definitely different feeling within a kilometer having artillery rounds hit, and you're just sitting there watching like a good spotter, but it's surrounding you. I mean, they were everywhere. Just continuous, but slow, but steady. Had a couple of big runs.
Bob,
And I think, yes, sir.
how are you being supported over there financially?
I'm not. So right now the website was just finished, and our links for everything are now up. So part of what I'm doing when I come home is getting ready to start raising money in order to do exactly that and start help paying for our rooms while we're staying there. We need to buy some decent vehicles, an ambulance. We've got a lot of dreams coming up and a lot of plans, but the funding's got to show up. So, but for us individually, like me, I support myself. I had a little bit of a fundraiser when I left with Task Force Yankee. That's since expired. But then again, I'm not really with Task Force Yankee. So I'll give them all the credit in the world. They got me over there. But now,
What is
yeah.
Task Force Yankee?
Say again?
What is Task Force Yankee?
Task Force Yankee is a U.S.-based veterans group that has facilitated now a pipeline for volunteers that wanted to get over there. So a gentleman called his name is Harrison, last name Harrison, has a couple co-founders, and they decided so they're able to get donations. I'm sorry, not donations, but supplies, or donations of supplies and things like that, into a pipeline and push them into at least Poland. And then we can transfer them into Lviv or Kharkiv, Kyiv, wherever they need to go to get into the hands of the people that need them. Originally, that's what it does now. Originally, it was just for basically getting guys over there, trying to feed them and vet them before they got into country. You can only vet so many, though, the ones that choose to come through your group, right?
Vetting. Something I remember, again, several weeks ago, when the confusion about the Foreign Legion started coming to light, was that the Ukrainian government had said, okay, fine, apply through the embassy, give it your background, et cetera, so that you're vetted and you're assigned before you go over. Did you talk to anybody that actually tried doing that?
Oh, yes. We talked to, there's a lot of people we talked to with that one. It did work for a bit. I mean, the embassy would give you the name of someone to contact, a recruiter, basically. That recruiter, they would meet them wherever. And then the recruiter would basically say, okay, well, you need to go to Ostrov. You need to basically go to Lviv, and then you kind of find your way in from there. Or sometimes I've heard stories of the recruiter said, all right, meet us here, and we'll come have a truck for you. Now, the problem is whenever they brought them in, they would go in there, but it wasn't International Legion. So the documents they would sign, their contract would say Ukrainian International Foreign Legion of Territorial Defense, right? Which is how it's tying it to the Army, not a legal entity for the Foreign Legion. So just
that the Foreign Legion was tied to the military, like the Territorial Defense Force was tied, so that once you are enlisted in it, you're actually a member of the Ukrainian Armed Forces.
essentially, yes. Basically. I mean, they tried to segregate the two, and to be honest with you, there were so many people that were signing up that weren't getting placed in the proper spots, that a lot of them are leaving. And that's so the Foreign Legion, in a sense, in the last, I'm going to say week now, in this next week, somewhere in here, if it hasn't already, and I haven't seen the news, if it did, the Foreign Legion may dissolve completely. So I don't know if you guys or are following Malcolm Nance at all. He's an MSNBC talking head. He's been the former director of all kinds of different agencies. Is a SEER school and was a SEER school guy. Basically, he's one of they call the kidnap club. So, anyways, he actually went. He was there, and I think he was trying to bring a face to the Legion, is what I'm gathering. And I had dinner with him just before I was leaving, but I think he's got good intentions. But he wouldn't. I was a nobody when I was actually figuring out this stuff and the people I was talking to. So when you're a nobody, you probably, nobody listens to what you say. Right. And he blew it off. And well, now he's realizing that everything I told him 4 weeks ago was true. And I don't know what he plans on doing. So if hopefully they're able to, there's a working group trying to save the Legion. And hopefully they can pull something together.
One of the guys I follow on YouTube does a daily update down to the student level, brigade and such. And in the situational report, down along the southern front, east of we're going to basically east of Odessa.
Right. So basically up towards Zaporizhia, Mariupol, and things like that. Right.
Yeah. There's a kind of sparsely covered front, but there's what he has identified as International Legion plus a Ukrainian army brigade that's come in as well, opposite a mixed Wagner group, and I can't remember what branch of the army it was, but a Wagner group and then army beside them.
Really?
International Brigade's got a fairly significant presence down there.
Just like a guy that's embedded down there, or a local one of the fighters that's putting this stuff out?
He doesn't cite his sources. I just recently discovered another guy who does daily reports who doesn't identify individual units, but he cites sources. I sent you the links for to send around. I found one guy, an academic from Australia, who does really interesting analyses on things. It's not his primary reason on YouTube, but he's got caught up in this. But he's putting good information out. And then these two guys, daily updates in detail, tactical detail, all around the front.
Huh. Wow. Oh, well, that's good. I would hope some of that stuff bothers me when I start seeing, that I'm sure, the detail, it's obviously not everything that's there that's going on. But when I hear Wagner Group operating down there confirmed, that's.
Well, both of them say when they've got information that they've been able to confirm versus, one source says this. And the one that I just discovered today doesn't say it's direct source because I've got this information from the Western sources.
Mm-hmm.
This information from Russian source info, and I've got this information from the Russian propaganda info, so we tell what they think the important.
Right, that's funny to watch. Oh my lord.
Okay, yeah, the Westerners say this. The Russians, as of this morning, said this. I heard locals have said that, but
right.
If what the propaganda says, they're ignoring it. So obviously they don't like that. But over here, the propaganda is claiming a big one, so that's important enough to them. They want to sound like they've already taken.
Right. Yeah. No.
Which gives more legitimate interest. But he cites all of sources when the information is confirmed, when the information confirms itself, or when it's conflicting, and then the reason why he analyzes it as he does.
Right on. Those guys, there's a lot of them out there, but I've got one politician that I pull an info from, and then the rest of anything I get comes from all the guys that I'm working with tied in. I stay out of the news pretty much. It's like
individual contact. So I'm following CNN, Al Jazeera, Deutsche Welle,
yeah,
and some other individuals. And there's an awful lot there that I look at maybe for pretty drone pictures, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, I know the Russians are they should be turning up the heat pretty quick. I know you watched the UA UA app over there, and you start seeing more bombings, more alerts going out, more missile strikes. I've heard of two pontoon bridges that they've already knocked out. That Ukraine knocked out.
Yeah.
Say again.
Yesterday, that was as the Russian forces were retreating, and they were blowing up the bridges so that they wouldn't be followed.
So there was an assault where the Ukrainians put in, I think it was 4 pontoon bridges. They got blown, and they went in again. And one of the guys that I'm following on YouTube was saying, I keep hearing they're pushing here, but they're going to get themselves in trouble. They're going to get themselves in trouble, and then they did get themselves in trouble there. They're still pushing.
Right.
Commander, there's another site which you may want to follow on LinkedIn, and that's from General Petraeus. He puts on an analysis every few days. Also, very detailed oversight.
No, it's just
obviously at a 4-star general level, but still nonetheless very interesting to see his perspective.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's definitely one of the guys that, for U.S. intelligence that they're listening to for sure. He gives a very pointed explanation of what he believes the battlefield and battleground is going to look like in the future.
What I was so desperately hoping for was that for the May Day celebrations in Moscow, that the Ukrainians would have given them a gift of another 2 ships going down.
I would have loved to see that for sure.
They apparently got two patrol boats with drones.
Really? Well, Eddie, hey, Sergey. Sorry, guys, I mean yelling here. Yeah, I can't hear a word.
Is that a Ukrainian bark?
Right. Give me 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. There we go.
Recently, they brought up the drones in the sinking of the Moskva. Supposedly, a Bayraktar managed to take out the S-300 anti-aircraft radar on the Moskva. As they launched the cruise missile attack.
Yeah, I was wondering exactly. I hadn't heard anything about what happened there. I thought maybe they got brave enough and that ship was close enough that they could have fired a couple of javelins on it and had some pretty good hits. But
there was that battery that tried to hit one of the patrol boats with a full grad barrage.
Right.
They hit it, but apparently it was something else. The Russians had shot up that they saw blow. Just happened at the same time.
Yeah. Well, the Ukrainians, they're very, the thing about the Ukrainians right now is all the arms are starting to make it to them. They're very well built, dug in. The Russians don't have the infantry to fight an urban battle. They'll continue with their same doctrine, the heavy weapons, armor and artillery. And it's just going to be a back and forth for the time being, and until the bigger, heavier weapons show up from the U.S. that are more lethal, and we can reach out further and touch them in Russia. So
they seem to be working with a fair number of draftees as well. These are not professional soldiers that are being mounted.
No, and part of the thing they believe about that is, when Putin's getting desperate, he's got to refill the ranks to keep it going. And the intel, again, saying that Putin might end up turning back to, Cold War type style leadership and we'll call it drafting, but where, they're walking around with weapons and rounding up men that are fighting age, giving them a steel pot with a big star on their head and saying, here, go to the line. Here's your weapon. Their story
aren't much better than that anyway. They've got a 1-year active duty commitment if they're drafted right now.
Mm-hmm.
Training minimal, and they've got no fucking useful NCO corps.
That's apparent right there, just the way they fight. But then again, the Ukrainian army, in a lot of senses, doesn't have the best NCO corps either. They're trying. They work a lot more together than what the Russians do. That's for sure.
But again, it's hearts and minds in country versus hearts and minds trying to come into that country.
Yeah, no, the people of the country are under the right mindset. They're pushing the others in the right direction. and their fight is what's bringing on the rest of the world. You know, it's finally you see something that's plausible, that could take shape. I mean, what's happening in Ukraine is going to change the planet in one way or another when it's over. You know, that country, along with the other breakaway countries in the big picture, they want to essentially do what the EU's done, and form their own sort of basically joint, group, to basically join the Western world. You know, they need to figure out how to get money and in there and rebuild in the education, and they're tired of living under Russia's thumb and being a buffer. Because you see what he does with his buffers.
Well, the pieces on the chessboard are certainly not positioned in a way that he would have expected. I see that the UK and Sweden today concluded a mutual defense pact. That one is totally unexpected, given Sweden's historic neutral stand. And with Finland about to apply for membership in NATO is also totally unexpected. Absolutely. So this is just the playbook is just not fanning out. And if you look through all the autocrats throughout history, it's starting to look like a very familiar story.
Right.
And I see a rope at the end of Putin's journey.
That's a good way to put it. I mean, the one thing we do say, and we have said since this has been going on, is in Russia's case, thank God for the corruption, because if they weren't as corrupt as what they are, it'd be a whole different, brutal ball game. I mean, just what's here times 100, But no, they're going to keep fighting. They're going to try and keep. It's not going to be over next week, that's for sure. So I've got a real hard push to try to figure out. I've struggled here the last week, and being over there and what was going on and what I'm involved in now, there's a lot of good that can happen. But trying to incorporate it back here instantaneously in that last week has been pretty overwhelming. So
speaking from the heart, what do you think the United States should do at this point? That's a tough strategic question, but what do you think?
I think they should do exactly what they're doing. Again, we aren't the world's police, and until Putin decides to say, if one of our, until he decides to start striking the embassy or U.S. troops directly, I don't give a shit where that is, whether it's on Ukrainian soil or whether that's in a NATO country or not. The second that happens, or a U.S. dignitary, then I think the U.S. should just full bore on its own, straight in, mobilize everything they've got, push across the line, and bring it right to the border of Russia. And then say, all right, here we go. I don't see the use of a nuke. Putin might be fucking out of his mind, but if he didn't use it, I don't see him using one. That day, I think it's come and gone.
What's of concern to me is that a lot of munitions are going into this particular operation, and as that happens, our own supplies are being diminished, and they're going to have to be replenished. So that budget allocation has to come out of the Congress.
In that sense,
but as Rob can tell you, because he was in that part of the world, the Chinese are starting to sniff around the South China Sea and surrounding areas.
Oh, absolutely. But I think in the sense of the U.S. aid on the military side with the armor and munitions we're sending, you got to think, okay, that's coming out of our stock, but most of that is coming out of stock that was not from the U.S. It was already on bases in Europe. And on top of that, the faster that they can get rid of the old stock, it's opening up with the defense budget, the size that we have right now, the R&D and new technologies that are coming into the military are pushing out that old stuff anyway. So it's got to go somewhere in order to open it up. And why not put it towards a country that you support, build their military, and put it right next to Russia? So in the big picture, I don't believe there's any strategic depletion to any kind of force that the U.S. has. Every round that they give the Ukrainians is a round in defense of the United States. It keeps Russia close to where they are. It keeps them out of a buffer country. yeah, it's going to push the red line on the whole nuclear option, but this
The
it's
reason, the
right
reason
now.
that I asked the question is it seems like our government is really adopted a very restrained position. I hear Macron, for example, president of France yesterday, almost proudly announcing that it will take decades to process Ukraine's application for NATO. And I sense that that's not the way it should play out. I think that
The trouble with Ukraine's application, as I understand it, there are social and legal structures that have to be in place over and above just the military for NATO acceptance. And Ukraine is not as far along on transitioning from Soviet economic, Soviet kleptocracy, and Soviet non-democratic governance. That's
Right.
slowing up the application to NATO. Whereas Finland and Sweden, shit, they're all the way in the mode already. All they need is the military acceptance. And then
Right. Think problem.
understood, and you're absolutely right, because Ukraine today, with its present president, is one generation from the previous president, who was much more aligned with, let's say, Soviet thinking.
The
So
Soviet.
the question is there something that we can do other than nation building? Because we've gone down that path unsuccessfully in the past.
an intermediate player would be getting Ukraine in the EU, because there is that, there's the economic support available immediately. There is a mutual defense clause in the European Union Charter. It's not as red button right now, red line
As NATO is.
EU is a very, very good option for the Ukrainians on a sense of a country and their prosperity. Being able to tie in with the EU is fantastic. Now you look at Brexit and they pulled out, but all in all, there's still going to be connections through that country too. It would validify everything that they're doing. Now the NATO picture of that. Okay, it might take them years to get into NATO. That's fine when it comes to the application. The thing is they're surrounded by NATO countries right now. Eventually what's going to happen is they're going to say, yes, you're in, if it comes down to it, and then move. But at the same time, let me look at Turkey. Turkey is a NATO country that's anti-NATO. Yeah. The best thing is to do it right now is I would say push Turkey out and bring Ukraine in, give them the chance, and then if that didn't work, push them out again. But
well, in large measure, Turkey has played the game insofar as this particular activity is concerned. They've supplied a lot of resources.
Sure, there's a neighboring country, so you would hope they would in that sense. But yeah, they don't necessarily play the NATO game very well.
And of course, the other interesting thing is that Lavrov seems to have disappeared off the public stage. Nobody knows where he is.
That surprised me. As time moves on, they're all going to start disappearing, whether they're dead or then somebody else will pop up in their spot. No, we need to push. I think on the U.S. side, we just need to push more arms their way, straight to military, more training, bigger, more powerful. Build them a fighting force. They're using it. And you can't beat the buffer part of it right there. It gives us a place. Yeah, that's part of our strategy overseas with NATO, is to get right next door to it. There's no reason they have to be a member of NATO for the United States to put a base in Ukraine. So.
Well, Poland looks like a good option for the U.S. to become more prominent in.
Oh, well, Seshu, the airport right there, the Air Force Base, Seshu, it's one of the largest and closest to it's only, 30 minutes, an hour. I was saying an hour from the Polish border. I remember when I was in there, was the day Air Force One had landed. They actually called me from our safe house and said, "Hey man, look around for Air Force One." I'm like, "What?" So I was checking it out, and lo and behold, there she was. But Biden was in there talking, and I got to watching as I left, and I think I counted. Well, there were multiple Patriot batteries there. I was impressed. It's quite the security. But I don't know. I wish good things for the country of Ukraine. I'm going to try to do everything in my power to do things to get them as much humanitarian aid and medical aid as I can, as we can, you know.
How are you being supported by the Red Cross?
I'm not being supported by the Red Cross. I mean, as in like financially or?
Either way.
No, I don't. I'm not aware of any donations or anything from the Red Cross.
Rob, my name's Rob Craig, and I've worked with USAID in disaster relief.
Hey, buddy.
Is USAID part of what you're doing there? Are you an extension of USAID?
No, we're not an extension of anyone. It is a 5-step. I believe one of the gentlemen that is with us is part of Abundance International. But beyond that, we've been in the same room as HARP. Worked around a few guys from their company, their organization, but nobody with USAID, nobody from any of those operations that I'm aware of. Mind you, there are.
Have you thought about reaching out to USAID to get supplies, humanitarian supplies, medical for yourself?
I haven't yet. What I can say is this: I can get the information from Yuri. He's sort of our CEO. We follow anything major. How do I say this? I need to check out who he's reached out to. If I can do that and let you know, then I could give you a straightforward answer. But USAID would be something that we would be interested in.
Well, I did some relief after a huge typhoon in the Philippines in 2013. I spent 7 weeks there. And they ran a program from November 10th to May 31st. Hundreds of millions of dollars went into the Philippines. Stuff what you're probably taking anyhow.
Right. Okay. Is there? Do you have any connections with them currently?
I could look up one of my old lieutenant colonels and see if he's still doing some work there or not.
Are you on Signal?
No, I'm in Facebook.
All right. I can find you on Messenger, or look me up on Messenger and shoot me a message.
Well, you know what? I'm the only guy with my name on Facebook. So if you want to look me up, it's Rob with 2 B's and Charlie Romeo Alpha India Golf Echo.
Okay. Charlie India Romeo Golf Echo.
Charlie, I sent you. Got his email on it too. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know you were on.
Oh, all right. There we go. Okay. All right. I can't say much. My email is Foxtrot India Golf or Foxtrot Golf India XO. So no, right on.
Highly efficient, and they'll throw everything they can at you, especially knowing you're an American.
That would be wonderful. I mean, there's 2 Americans on the group, and to get something like that tied in with a group like that would be incredible. I think that'd be great. I will look them up, but I'll make a connection with you through Facebook, and then I can chat with you right there about that. Find out maybe, again, if you do have any contacts there, somebody can look up directly. I've taken my sweet ass time. I said I was going to get some photos and stuff and put them on there, but I still am. But what I'm trying to do first is I got to sit down and I got to write a short. I'm gonna basically write like a press release, a memo that I'm gonna put on Facebook and LinkedIn and send to you guys and stuff. Just kind of explaining my journey, where I started, what happened, my decisions, explain the journey, explain what I'm tied into. It might be a little long, but hopefully those that are interested will take the time to read it, and see what the journey was and where I'm hoping to take it from now or from here. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to help a lot of people, and we've done a lot of good already.
Jim, do you think there's any potential for an article like that in the American Legion magazine?
I do. I can reach out to the editor. I know him.
Well, that'd be something I'd definitely be interested in. I'd want to put this out first and let everybody get a chance to read that, and then I can take the constructive criticism on whether I can write or not, and fix anything before I talk to any news, articles. But
And I can run it by my wife. She's an editor.
Well, there you go.
She's a resident for medical reasons, not mental ones.
Right.
So Rob, who's giving you goods in kind for your support mission?
Well, right now, most of them are coming from other ag. So what we've done is we have linked up with 2 or 3 smaller aid groups that are in Ukraine working locally. And then with Urash's help, we were able to secure, say, 5%, 10% of their donations in order to take those donations on a specific mission somewhere. So our group, in a sense, right now receives nothing. I'm back here trying to figure out, again, pipeline from here, get suppliers, start to raise money, build it on the ground here, and then try to get money raised there, so then we can start getting that. So we don't receive anything. Everything what we're doing is right now funneled through someone else, or acquired through someone else, and we are the pipeline to deliver it. But what we're, the first, one of the biggest things we're having trouble with are vehicles. In all honesty, it's just vehicles, good, reliable vehicles. And that's been a problem. So we're going to try to approach one like Ford or somebody like that for some off-road vehicles. I've heard stories of them donating.
Is there a stock already there in Poland, for example, where you could get them, or do they have to be brought in from elsewhere?
I believe, well, so here's the thing. There were Ford dealers there. So the vehicles are somewhere. Now there's other brands, Lamal and I mean,
the UN is from front to back all Toyota.
Oh yeah, not there's a lot of them. But if you going through in Kyiv and in Lviv, there's always the foreign car dealers that are tied in, and usually they've got the trucks. I know that I've seen a few Raptors running around. It'd be those are far hope dreams, but it would be nice to have about 4 or 5 Raptors decked out. That'd be perfect for 2 ambulances and 3 personnel vehicles. Whew. But yeah, they're there. Yes, sir.
Recording this, and I'm going to send it out to the membership. So is there anything that you want to tell the membership?
I would like to just say, if there's any help that the membership could provide, or knowledge or ties, or that myself and the Wild Geese would be extremely grateful. I would be more than grateful for any help along the lines. This is a completely new endeavor for me. I have no idea what I'm doing. And it's anything. Our goal is to provide the best help to the Ukrainian people we can. We believe in their fight, and any way we can help them and try to bring them a better future. I know the government doesn't want to be part of nation building, but that's exactly what I intend on being part of is nation building and bringing the U.S. our good Western morals and beliefs and their democracy and shit like that to this country. That's what they want. So we need to figure out a way to help them do that and save lives at the same time. So thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry to keep talking.
No, we enjoyed every word.
Well, yeah.
But no, I'm available anytime, guys. And it might take me a little bit to respond, but I should be here. I'm here until the end of June. Then I'm going to go back. I'm going to try to get to Calgary. I need to try to see my son. Again, try, but to be there would be good. Say again.
You have to get back to Calgary. Just let us know.
No, it'd be nice to see you guys. And I apologize. I don't remember your name in the back.
Rob.
With 2 B's. All right. Right on. Right. Yeah. I hope to keep in touch with you, man. That would be.
You have to say that.
It sounds interesting.
So you said to be and not to be.
Right. I like it. No, that's good. But no, I look forward to some good things, man. It's a hell of an opportunity to make a difference in the world, and it's my pleasure. I want to try to be there to do that. So
How much aid have you actually brought into the country?
we've delivered. I've delivered, I don't know, I would say 10, 20, 30, 50 tons throughout different sections of it. What's came into the country, I couldn't tell you,
I'm looking at what you're doing with your little group there.
Oh, well, so in our in our group, since I've been in country, we've delivered about 50 tons of food to different spots. Usually the loads we go with are 5 to 10 ton per delivery. So, and that's basically a truck and a half, a small box truck or a mid-sized box truck, and then a smaller van, but packed full. You couldn't put, the problem with getting to all these places is we can't run big convoys. We just big target, right?
So these are, I take it that these are mostly canned goods?
All kinds of non-perishables, rice, vegetables, anything we can get our hands on. Regular noodles and kids stuff, diapers, women's toiletries, medicines, toothbrushes. It's anything and everything that you would use in your daily life that they just don't have out there anymore. I mean,
one of the big problems, as I understand it, because of course the Ukraine is one of the world's major producers of grain, and they've got grain sitting in silos that's just going bad right now.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
so
they're getting, there's some delivering it. The UA is pushing stuff like that, but at the same time, their resources are focused towards trying to put weapons in hands,
right.
Right. So they can only focus on so much effectively. The money's got to go somewhere. The time's got to go somewhere. They're feeding their troops. Right. But I mean, the rest of the country has to kind of work at themselves a little bit. The government's doing everything they can.
Sure, that's understood. But what I'm thinking about is the logistics, and maybe that's something that you're already involved in, or if not, maybe something you could be involved in, because you're talking about transportation.
Mm-hmm.
And logistics needs transportation. And it seems to me you've got this tremendous stock of grain that's sitting there that, unless it's somehow distributed, first of all, obviously to the people of the Ukraine, and then second of all to their external market to earn whatever funds they can generate.
Well, for local distribution, it has to be milled and processed, either into flour as such or in.
Just on the export side, that's actually a good question. On the local side, I wouldn't necessarily want to get involved in the government side of them trying to distribute the food through them. As for like what we would do, we would probably keep it on the outside, work with them, but again, work is the wild geese and delivering that kind of aid.
Okay, I have a question. What is the more efficient way to get goods into the country? To try to organize things here and ship them over, or get money to you where you can buy in the regional economy?
Well, I think regional economy.
I would think so, but you don't know how heavily it's hit.
Regional economy is the best option, because you can get effectively, depending on how far west you are, you can get things that are needed.
I think you'll buy in the Czech Republic as opposed to having to ship it across the Atlantic.
Right.
Time.
I mean, that's a hard thing. It all depends on what it is you're trying to look for. I mean, if it's food that you're trying to do, supply for food, there's, a lot of what happens is we'll get donations in, or they'll grab money from somewhere. I don't know. Next thing you know, we're going to a big grocery store run. We're buying, like 3,000 hryvnia is $100 there, but we're buying like $60,000 worth of food, or 60,000 hryvnia worth of food. Throwing that in a bunch of cars and bombing out into a city, with Urash one day and just start handing it out to God and everybody, right? Because you're in, you say hello, you drop this off, send it everywhere, and then you bounce. You get out of there. The big runs, again, we've moved tons of all kinds of stuff. I mean, a lot of the bulk weight, I'll be honest, when it comes down to it, are the potatoes. things like that. You know, they'll ship hundreds and hundreds of pounds of potatoes, canned tuna, canned fish, and things like that. There's tons of that. But
Robert, is this mostly road or is it rail as well?
most of the stuff is, well, I know I can get back and forth by rail at times, spotty. When it comes to transport of goods, I'm not sure how well that's coming from across the border by rail. I think rail has pretty much probably been secured for military use.
Yeah.
I see is coming in by truck. You know, just when I was leaving the country, the truck line for trucks getting out of the country at the crack of its border crossing was 25 kilometers long. And when I went through, I was 2 kilometers from the checkpoint, and it took me 12 hours to get from point A to the end point in Poland. So I can only imagine what it's going to take for all of those truck drivers to get through 25 kilometers long. Now they could go to other points in the country, but that uses more fuel. They might just be as backed up. And the other issue is there's a massive fuel crisis going on right now in country. And it kicked off about the day that 2 days before I left is when it really started to go. We actually got stranded outside of town because we ran out of fuel. We were trying to leave to get to Lviv and had to turn around and come back because there was no fuel stations open. I ended up having to buy fuel off the black market. It was, again, quite the adventure. But yeah, you know, one of the big things is going to be, this is something that maybe you could be helpful in. So there's aid coming in from all over the world, and food aid. And now, yes, transportation is something that we would like to see cleaned up and be more efficient. But what's going to be a big issue, especially in the next couple months, are the soldiers and civilians that have been victims of artillery and catastrophic explosions and detonations that are missing arms and limbs. You know, the healing time goes probably 6 months before you can even get fitted for a prosthetic, and then on top of that, therapy that goes along with it. Throughout the country, you can imagine how many people, because of the kinetic version of war it is, how many people have the, you know, are amputees. So what I'm proposing to do, and I'm thinking about this, is somehow approaching the VA and see if there would be any way to acquire like some of the old VA hospital rehabilitation equipment, medical equipment, and things like that could be used in military hospitals over there, or even on the humanitarian aid side, the civilian hospital, in everyone, you know, and for all victims of these things. I think the recovery process for the amount of wounded in that country is going to be incredible. And on the mental health side of it, you imagine, I know how fucked up I am from one tour in Iraq, you know, and my Army days, let alone, you know, Vietnam veterans, Korean War veterans, World War II veterans, the guys that actually went through kinetic conventional warfare like this is. It wasn't like that in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Any chance you can talk to the war amp?
Say war amps? Oh, yes, war amps. That's a huge one, yes. Yeah, I want to talk to the VA and someone like that, see if there's something that can be done later on in the future. I mean, there's lots of time to work on it, but the mental health side and the rehabilitation side and prosthetic side is going to be massive.
What I could do, Robert, I belong to a thing called the Institute of Logistics and Transport, and we've got a meeting next week. And I have no idea what their activity is related to this, but I'll find out.
That would be.
But wars are won or lost, not with anything except logistics. Logistics is the central enabler.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And
Talk tactics, professionals talk logistics. I think I've heard that before. 9 men to support every one soldier.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Jim. And the other thing, obviously, with rail, that's a nice stationary target
Mhm.
for the bad guys.
Now, they're trying to leave it in place because they are so dependent on rail.
Yes,
The things I think will, if long-range weapons are available to the Ukrainians, if some of the Russian choke points on the rail system are going to start getting hit.
yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Got to hit
The thing of it is, airport runways, experience has shown you can repair a runway literally in one day. That's not a difficult problem. But air is not the way to move things. Rail, I agree with what the commanders just said, and that is you got to make the situation such that rail is as important to the bad guys as it is to your own people.
The whole Russian logistics system is predicated on rail distribution, close to the front lines, and then maybe 150 clicks at most from a major rail junction for truck transport. Their TO&E doesn't have a lot of trucks.
Yeah.
Well, I know right now they're trying to motivate them to use more drones in the attack on their rail there along there.
Where I was going with what I just said is to determine, and I'm going to do that through SILTNA, this Institute of Logistics and Transport, conventional trucks may not be suitable in your area if those roads are taken out somehow. In other words, would off-road vehicles be of greater use?
That's exactly what it would be. That's when I speak of, say, the Raptor. That's where I'm just leading on a commercial off-road style Vic. More off-road style in the heavy. So the other thing is off-road, we have to stay away from, the super heavy ambulances. But the style of the Humvee, the
Six by six. Is that
Deuce. So again, on the weight side of a Deuce and a half is a heavy ass vehicle, especially when fully loaded.
Is the Deuce and a half too big for the conditions as you saw them?
Yes, I would say your most effective vehicles in some cases, and a lot of those, especially going on and off the roads, are going to be like a 300 or a 450 style truck with a flat deck on it of some sorts, or a cargo box on it. You can pack whatever age you want in that has the ability to get through other. I'm sure Rob, he's probably seen a lot of those in those disaster areas like that, just to make it through muddy, rocky ground that are broken up concrete. Yep. The amount of clearance you have to have on the Vic, the weight is huge. Otherwise, you just end up getting stuck, high centered. You're not helping anybody.
Rob, one of the things I've done a lot of philanthropy in the Philippines. I ship sea containers over there full of stuff, mostly used clothes and stuff. I actually own some sea containers.
Oh wow!
It's something called Samaritan's Purse here in Calgary. They've offered help for me, like you could store your sea can there if you want, and we'll help you out a little bit where we can. I've never taken it. What I'm thinking here to myself is you can do this post with the posts of the Canadian Legion here in Calgary in conjunction with Samaritan's Purse. We might be able to send you a sea can. That would
be incredible.
I got a 40-foot high cube right now. Gives you somewhere to live after too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. The biggest thing I would be thinking about is where could I get it sitting there on the stateside to where I fill it with aid and send it full.
Well, no, what I'm thinking is in conjunction with Samaritan's Purse, we rally with the Canadian Legion and try and fill it here and then ship it out of Vancouver.
Include the Vets Association and see who they can suggest. Include them in your talk. See who they can suggest that might be able to contribute to this.
Well, we can brainstorm this after too.
Yeah, this is a good idea. I like it. It gets the Legion, it gets Post 20 directly involved on the home front of that, and then brings in the rest of the Legion nationwide in that sense, or at least this area wide, right? No, that's a fabulous idea. I'd like to put it on paper and ask a couple others in the group here on my side if it's something they would consider.
I hope you got the commander's suggestion of the war amps down there too on paper.
Yes, absolutely. No, I've got my notes here, but there's a couple. The war amps is super important for me on the process side. So
American First is very, very big. I think, I can't remember where in the United States they're based, but they're a big, huge outfit.
Samaritan's Purse.
Huge.
Okay.
I
Is it
hear
enough?
them mention a lot
Disaster relief.
disaster relief thing.
Yeah, I'll have to check this out. Let's again, I'll find you on Facebook, Rob, and then that way I can shoot a message straight back to you. Or we'll create it. Actually, what I can do is I can create a group and try to bring everybody into that. We'll just call it let's just call it well, I'll figure out a name.
Wild geese, friends of wild geese.
There you go. Yeah, perfect. Right. And yeah, we can go further with that. That sounds fantastic. Sounds like a really good idea.
By the way, the term wild geese, that didn't come from the original Richard Burton movie, did it?
Well, there's Charles will refer to it and say that's kind of where it came from.
Okay,
So-
because I got to tell you, there's a lovely picture of an EC3 in there, is actually a C-47. The scene opens with that for the wild geese, and I flew that airplane.
Oh shit.
Yep. So as soon as you said wild geese, I had to ask that question.
Really? That's you flew that airplane.
I flew that airplane, that particular one. Yep. Uniform Alpha Sierra. If you ever see the movie, that's the registration of it. Uniform Alpha Sierra.
Well, let me watch the movie and then I'll have some questions for you.
There you go.
So, yeah, they reference that a lot over there. I've never seen it, so I have to watch it. But
Before COVID, I was picking up 40-foot high cubes for $33,000, and they're certified seaworthy.
right. The biggest, I think that's something that we could definitely look into, especially in moving aid back and forth. The problem is going to be shipping them and cost.
The cost of shipping them is expensive.
Again, maybe you can get support.
It's going to be that's the cost of shipping is going to be a brutal one, and in the sense of, I mean, figuring out how to get it donated, that's even better. But that's only going to come with conversations and a plan that's well written out.
Yeah.
You might get somebody to donate you if you can.
Yeah, no, I mean, to have a CCAN donated is fabulous. That would be great. What I don't want to see though, I don't want to see something like as a CCAN leave a country not full. If it's coming this way, it's got to be full of something. I got to figure out something to put in it, right?
You get this question. What's the longest CCAN that you can move? I realize
The shipping company so that's up to the shipping companies, right? And I would guess that's going to be a standard 40-footer. I'm sure they have longer, but
Up to 53.
well,
53, I think, is standard.
regular, yeah. The 20s, the 40s, and the full sizers, the 53 footers. Those are the ones I've seen. Again, it's all, you can get them shipped, you can get them put on the boats. It's a matter of getting them there. So even if you do that, it's got to go to Europe and then travel by land over there because you can't get anything into the Black Sea. So, yeah, it's going to be a process, and we need to figure out what's behind that. But if someone could donate a CCAN in that sense, that would be fabulous. That's the start. And then from that point, we would, I'd want to figure out how to fill it. And
What is access like from Monrovia into Lviv, for example, that western portion?
not bad unless you're in the Transnistria area.
Yeah,
From Moldova, if you're in and along the Transnistria area, that section, there's nothing that goes in and out of there. And in fact, if you're especially a Westerner, you just stay away from there.
yeah, that's on the other side. Yeah, agreed.
Right. They're so isolated. Now, ultimately, Russia wants to tie into that. And that's how they link the entire thing. But you got to take Odessa. You got to take all these other places to get that. And Moldova's already told them to leave. They want them out. So depending on what happens with the Eastern Front and the Southern Front, you might see some skirmishes there. And you might see Ukraine go into battle there. But at the same time, establish an evacuation corridor for the Russians to go south. Not kill them all, but give them a way to escape and get out.
We've already
Right.
got some unexplained accidental explosions happening in transit industry. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That kind of where it's going to continue on like that in many different places. But
But
no, it's been a while.
that's probably a result of what happened on the Moskva, where somebody dropped a cigarette.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's just dropped a cigarette right in the battery. Yeah. Perfect. I like it. I like it a lot.
Gentlemen, I'm going to have to bail out.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure. It's good to see you again. And yes, if you could, that institute would be something I'd be very interested in working with and talking to. Again, considering the reconstruction that's looking forward in the future.
Whereabouts in the States are you?
I am right now, I'm in Oregon, Corvallis, Oregon.
I used to live in Bend.
Oh, in Banff?
Bend.
Oh, Bend. Shit. Right. I've seen that on the map. I haven't been there, but
I got an old girlfriend that lives in Corvallis.
right on, man. Small world, eh?
He's got old girlfriends over half the planet.
Yeah, well, it's a man who
He's a very friendly man.
right. That's how you make memories right there, my friend.
You're just west of Bend. It's not very far. An hour, half hour, maybe 45 minutes.
Really? No. I've been out a few places here and into the woods where I've taken the four-wheeler and enjoyed it quite a bit. But
you must be close to the Chutes National Forest too.
that sounds familiar. I'll tell you right now, though, it's not Calgary. I love Calgary. It's being that close to the Rockies and just that separation. You got the flat ground plains to what, go looking east and mountains to the west. It's perfect. I like the green out here, but I like to be able to see a distance too. So I feel close in on both the east, and the same thing I felt on the East Coast when I was around there on the East Coast. All the trees are taller. You can't see, you're so low, you just can't see far. I just don't like that.
Why don't you go get some sleep?
Cheers.
No. Do I look like I'm tired? The big old round black eyes.
John, he's in Montreal.
Oh shit. Yeah. So yeah. Hey, good night. Yeah. I'll talk to you soon.
Robert, excellent presentation. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it. All the best.
Oh, look forward to the next time. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I got an old girlfriend.
Everybody's
My old girlfriend works at the Veterans Hospital.